Welcome to the Reticle Up podcast, where I, 3-Gun Kenzie, will be interviewing competitive shooters, hunters, fishermen, archers, entrepreneurs, and outdoorsmen. Come learn with me as I interview people from all walks of life, in different disciplines, all across the world, from novices to professionals of all ages. No matter what, everyone has something they can teach you, so come join me on the journey. Welcome back, everyone, to Reticle Up podcast. I'm excited. I'm here with my buddy, Brady Hardin. So he's a master in single stack, and he's a little bit open curious, which we're going to get into tonight. But he primarily shoots USPSA, and I'm excited to have you on, bud.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Absolutely. Brady and I have road tripped. We have learned that experience. He has seen me at my worst and my best. There's no other way to put it, really. So we're gonna kick this strong. So road tripping up to Area 5. This is a very important discussion Brady and I had. So we've got to talk about, Brady. Which is better, Airheads or Gummy Bears, and why are Airheads the superior candy?
So, well, the reason why Albany's Gummy Bears are the superior candy, or the superior gummy, I should say, is because they are heavenly. They are of the Lord. I feel like Gummy Bears, or this brand of Gummy Bears specifically, is like the Chick-fil-A of Gummy Bears. It is the best. It is superior. It is God's Gummy Bear.
How long have they been around? Do you even know?
I have no idea. I first learned about them, actually, my buddy Dave Horn, one of his sponsored Shooter Source, they actually mail out a small bag of Gummy Bears in every package that you buy. So I told Dave, like, I bought something a while back from him, and I was like, Dave, these are my favorite people ever. They're the best.
Are they the best, or are they the source of why you have an addiction to Gummy Bears now?
Well, I've always had an addiction to, like, gummy type candy, Gummy Bears specifically, but yes, they heighten the addiction. So, like, a lot of people probably have heard, like, from a defensive mindset, some of, I can't remember his name now, but he talked about the great white bag concept, where people were basically waiting on people to come out of the Apple store because they had expensive items and were going to rob them. Well, my big white bag concept is a great big white bag of Albany's Gummy Bears, like the 5-pound bag. So
we need to get, if somebody knows somebody at that company or can introduce them, sponsor this dude. So yeah, I was really for it. I feel like everyone listening to you probably has had that, like, moment where they stopped at a gas station going to a match and they've had their guilty pleasure and they don't share what that is. Like, there's some people out there, grown humans, eating sugar the whole way. You know what I mean? We admit it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, sugar's great. It's fine. Just not too much.
I love it. All right. So to dig down in shooting, I actually wanted to start out you start out in single stack for USPSA, right? Or did you start out in a completely different division first?
So I actually started out in limited, shooting limited minor. I had a Glock 34 that I'd been shooting in IDPA at the time, and I started shooting USPSA later on that year. I think it was 2016, I think. It's funny. My very first sanctioned USPSA match, I shot limited minor with that 34, and it was Area 6, the last year that it was at in Covington over here. So that was 2017, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, I embarrassed myself there, and that's where I definitely learned how huge the mental aspect is in shooting.
Yeah, for sure. On that gun, like, was it mostly stock, or did you even have a magwell on it, or you just running what you got?
Yeah, I was just kind of going with it. It was more like a production gun with nicer trigger. Well, it's nicer triggers you can put in a Glock because you still want reliability. And then just aftermarket sights and some extended base pads on it to give me more BBs in the gun. So
yeah, but it got you started. That's the cool part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you know anybody, like, when you showed up to your first match, or was this you just going on your own?
Well, how I actually found out about competitive shooting is I think I was like 14, and the a few guys that I went to church with had went and shot an IDPA match. and one of them being my youth director at the time, Rusty. And he came and he showed me some of these videos. We were hanging out at somebody's house one evening after church, and I was like, "Whoa, this stuff is so cool!" I was like, "Mom, Dad, can I do this?" They're like, "No." I can understand that, a 14-year-old to ask that. But I remembered it all through. And then whenever I turned 19, Alabama dropped their concealed carry permit age down to 18. So naturally, I went and got my concealed carry permit and bought a gun without my parents' knowledge. And I probably a year or so rolled around, and my dad told me, like, well, if you're going to carry a gun, then you need to take and shoot at least once a month. And I remembered those IDPA matches. And I said, well, that would be a really good thing to go do to really help me practice for it. And it's funny. Now, I went to my first IDPA match the first Saturday in March in 2016. And I was 20 years old. And this is back when IDPA still had the half-second scoring. The new rules hadn't come out yet like they did in 17. I dropped, it was over 200 points down at that match. I didn't finish dead last, but my final score for that match was like 430 or something seconds. It was so bad because I was literally that guy that had no idea what the sights were. Mm-hmm. And how to use them or anything else. So I was definitely very bottom of the barrel when I started.
It's interesting though, like even when I started, I was towards the bottom, but I wasn't last. And I'm like, if I know nothing and I just showed up, I'm like, how bad are these other people?
Yeah, right. Because like I was still shot that bad, and looking back on it now, it's like, wow, I came in not knowing anything about anything, barely even how to breathe, and I still didn't finish last. So I was like, okay, I'm all right with this.
That's awesome. Yeah. So when, like, after, was it IDPA or USPSA when you started like dabbling in the single stack world, or what made you switch to that?
So I had been in USPSA for a little bit. It was actually that same year that I went and embarrassed myself at Area 6. So later on in May 2017, or no, in April, I bought a single stack gun, and I'd been wanting one for a little while because I thought they were so cool and they're fancy and all that. But I was like, well, I really want to buy something that's kind of lower end of the dollar amount and all, because I don't know anything about them. I'm probably going to break stuff. I want to kind of figure out what I like, what I don't like, but I want it to look cool. Well, the cool factor is the most important factor when you buy a gun, right?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I have to have everything custom and colored, so I get it.
Because I mean, if that was the case, we would all be rocking high points,
Nope. Still no.
But anyway, I ended up, a buddy of mine was working for Frank Proctor at the time, and I went by his shop and was going to pick up something because I forgot it the day before. And Frank had been messing around with a range officer operator, Springfield. Okay. And I've been talking to Keegan about about 1911s, and Frank just so happened to have his hanging up there in the shop, and he handed it to me. Yeah. I started messing with it, and I loved it. I was like, all right, this is the one. Out of all the ones I've looked at, this is the one I want. So I bought one, and throughout the rest of that year into through the end of 2017, I broke everything in it except for the hammer strut, and the sear.
Holy cow. From a lot of rounds?
Just use. It was funny because if you took that gun apart, you could just see you could tell how much I've shot it and dry fired it just by looking at the back of the trigger bow, because you could see all the wear from the disconnector hitting the back. Yep. But yeah, that gun had a true battle worn finish on it, just from all the holster wear and all the dry fire from it and everything else. Cool. It had a lot of character.
Love it. And I don't know much about that gun in terms of, like, is it minor power factor for that one?
Yes, this one's a 9mm. It's it's very flat. It's very soft.
Okay. So then, like, for people that don't know, like shooting single stack, you can shoot the 10 rounds minor or 8 rounds major power factor. And like, when you think about, shooting a major power factor with the recoil of a 40 or 45 versus, 9 mil with a couple extra rounds, but less points, do you think that someone can still be competitive, shooting minor, and it's almost can be advantageous to shoot minor over major?
It's very stage dependent and match dependent.
Okay.
So in most matches because I've been experimenting with it for the last few years, and I found that I can actually show up to most matches and shoot major and probably put up a better performance with it. Even it doesn't matter which match you go to, you'll have a couple stages in there that are bad for an 8-round gun, but you just have to come up with a plan to kind of get around it. Because if you have to do a standing load somewhere, Lord forbid, you just got to do a standing load, but do it quick. Don't be a wimp about it.
Right.
But I will say, in that comparison, there has been one match that I've shot, a sanctioned match, that I wish I'd shot minor, and everything else I would still go back to this day and do major.
Okay. So that's really funny though. Thinking about thinking about single stack like division rules and stuff. So like the weight of the firearms like can be on the heavier side, correct?
Yes. So, and that was one of the recent rule changes they came out with whenever that allowed flashlights and everything else, which are handy recently. So we went from a 43 ounce weight limit up to a 45. So not much of a change really. And then we got magnets. And we can have our mag pouches or our holsters in front of our hip bones now. So, I mean,
you need 12 single stack. So it's kind of a great thing for y'all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was funny actually. A buddy of mine and I, we were at a match one time, and somebody had about that many magazines on their belt, and they were like, "Oh man, do you need that many?"
Not good. Not a good day.
Oh no, absolutely not. Which it was a tough match too. I think it may have been an outlaw match. But yeah, I haven't even changed my belt. I don't even have a magnet on my belt right now for single stack. I've just left
running a magnet, so it's not like a huge difference for you. Yeah,
right. Because there's only been very few instances where I've actually needed one, and there's been one or two stages that I've shot, whether it be a club match or sanctioned match before, where it's unloaded table start, and if I have to do more than one reload, then I'm gonna have to just stow 2 magazines anyways.
Yeah.
But there's been a few times where I could get by with just taking one. So primarily what I would do is I would pick the gun up, load it, and pick up the other magazine and hold it in between my fingers and just shoot. And then whenever I needed to reload, just reload.
Oh God. Skills, Brady, skills.
I don't know, it's not so much. Gaming, maybe.
Well, so you went from like Magwell, if you had it on the 34, or not, at least a bigger double stack gun, to this small itty bitty reloading Magwell. So how did that go? Like how many times did you have to practice reloading to get reloading down?
Well, I'm still getting reloading down, so I have some of my guns in front of me here, so you can see I miss the Magwell a lot because I push speed to try and get better at it. But it was an adjustment because I didn't have a Magwell or anything on that 34 at the time, but I'd been even earlier on, before I knew what dry fire was or anything like that, or how to use sights, like I said. I figured out that there was absolutely no excuse and no reason why I couldn't manipulate the gun just as fast as anyone else could. So that being draws, reloads at the time, because I didn't really think or know about transitions or anything else. So reload practice there helped with a wide body gun, if you will, or a double stack gun. But then going to single stack, even with a Magwell, it was challenging. But I learned really quickly that a Magwell's a must.
Yeah.
Because I put a Smith & Alexander on Magwell on my gun to start with, and it was fine at the time. But the problem that I had was my gun was a tad bit on the heavy side, like Maybe a half ounce overweight.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I ended up taking it before I discovered Tech Well. I took it to Keegan and we put it on a little bit of a diet and opened up the grip panel some to where it just barely made weight.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but since I've discovered Tech Well though, it's a must for me. I know everybody shoots single stacks kind of got preferences on mag wells and grips and all that stuff, but Tech Well is definitely the way for me.
It's kind of cool. Yeah. Single stack, there's a lot more, I feel like, that you can change to help. Like, so many people shoot differently. So having wooden grips, having aggressive grips, rubber grips, like there's so much you can do to a 1911, I feel like.
Absolutely. Absolutely there is.
Really fun. So when you switch over single stack, like what was the first classification that you made?
I don't remember actually, but I'm pretty confident I was like, because like I said, I come into the end of that year when I didn't know how to use sights. Probably my first limited classifiers were like C, but by the time that I got into single stack, they were probably along the B line.
Okay.
So yeah,
B line,
pretty low still. Yeah, B line.
Like, so when you were moving on up in classification stuff, like how long did it take you to reach that master class? And was it where you were expecting, on the timeline?
Well, so I never really set an expectation for I want to make this classifier. Well, obviously, yeah, this classification. Thank you. I'm from Alabama. It's okay.
I love that. You heard it from an Alabamian. Thank you. I've been saying that for years. Okay, go ahead.
Roll Tide. So it kills you inside. I know.
That out. No,
Florida State. So my original idea and my goal set was centered around one thing that I heard from Pat McNamara, actually, and I'm going to make it a G-rated version. Basically, he said, if you cloned yourself today, could you kick your clone's butt tomorrow? Meaning, what are you doing today to get better and make yourself better than you are today for tomorrow? So I've always had that mindset in it and thought that, okay, if I'm doing something to work on some weakness that I have or develop myself better, then there's no reason why I'm not going to progress. And I didn't really set a limit or an expectation on it at the time. And looking back, I probably should have, but then again, just taking and working mindlessly toward it, I guess it may have kind of helped get me there. But to circle back around to your question now, so at the end of 2018, I took a class with Elias Frangulis, and I love him. He is a super awesome dude. He has got a really good character about him. Awesome instructor. I need to call him and talk to him more than I do. But I took a class with him for 2 days, and he opened my eyes to everything, just all of the fine detailed stuff that I was missing. And he pointed out just all the small little things that I could do to be better in it. And it was a huge game changer. And I worked, because that was literally at the end of December, because we took the class. I think we finished the class on New Year's Eve, or the day before New Year's Eve. Yeah. So I just kept practicing and kept going along those things that we learned in that class. And first match that rolled around of the year was March, in the Alabama sectional. And thankfully, Paul Kerr and Randy Arrowwood didn't show up that year. I won single stack at it. I beat a few A class people and some other B class people, but I was still a B at the time. But from then on is whenever I started to just see my skyrocket to master show up, because I don't know what it was. It had to just be practicing all those things that Elias taught me, and showed me those deficiencies. But master came very quickly after that.
That's awesome. That's interesting. You didn't really set goals to do that, by the way. Like, who does that? Okay.
I do now, but I still leave them kind of loose in a sense, I guess, in that I have clear defined goals, but I don't, kind of like positive affirmations, I guess. You don't want to, say something that could be here or there. You want a definite sort of thing.
Yeah. Did you like match bump up when you were changing classifications, or just hitting those classifiers and matches?
I ended up just hitting the classifiers and matches because I literally went from shooting B class and sometimes a decent A class runs to just turning in master runs.
That's cool.
And it was really amazing to see. Cause I remember like listening to like Steve Anderson and some other people talk about, if you take and work on this, that, and all, and really work hard at it and put the time and effort into it, you're going to see the improvement in just a very short amount of time. And it was really cool to see that.
So when did you spend the money on your new pistol?
So for the listeners that don't know, I have had a crush on a Nighthawk single stack for a long time. I didn't have a particular one in mind or lined up, but at the time I was going to go shoot the Florida Open one year. It was in February around Valentine's Day, and I was going to go shoot my range officer. I didn't even own a major gun yet, and I had broken an ejector in it, and I actually had been shooting it broken for several months, and it ran until it died at a classifier match in like January. That's why if anyone looks up my classification, why I still have like a 39% classification in L10, because gun did not run. But I ended up around that time frame, I got to put about 2,000 rounds through a Nighthawk. Just kind of practicing with one, getting the feel for one, and then whenever I got my gun back up and going again, going back to my range officer, it was so hard to transition back. Like, it was literally showed me the difference between a normal standard production gun and a full-on custom hand-built gun.
Yep.
And since then on, I've really had the desire to have one. And the thing for me, I knew Nighthawk was a big company, and or had kind of learned from it from Matt Sims. It's a very dear friend and my training partner. And I knew from him that he had shot him a lot, and he had a lot of faith in him as far as just craftsmanship and reliability and everything along those lines. But the thing to me that's a selling point about Nighthawk that separates them from other gun manufacturers is their morals. So if you ever look them up on their website, they openly claim that they are a Christian run and a Christian founded company. And that's the big thing to me, because I've grown up, I've been raised Christian all my life. Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, and I'm very thankful for that. Still don't fathom, him sending his son down the cross for me.
Yeah.
But that was the change point for me that sold me on them then. Because I've never heard of any other company that does that, gun manufacturing wise. So they definitely are going to have my business.
It's cool. So Chick-fil-A, Gummy Bears, and Nighthawk.
Yeah, absolutely. You see a trend here, right?
Oh, I know you very well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very simple, Ginger.
Yeah, it's true. Oh man, like looking at that gun now. Did you have to change anything about it, or when you bought the custom gun, like it was go time?
So I have this one here too because I was dry firing with it a while ago. So this one, it was a Cerakote gun. I actually found this in a gun shop, Birmingham Pistol Wholesale. They're off of Deerfoot Parkway in Birmingham, and I walked in and it was a used gun that was just dirt cheap. So I looked at it and was kind of thinking about it, and Matt and I were talking about it because we walked in there together looking for something else, and we kind of talked about it on the way home, and I mulled it over the weekend while I texted one of my buddies that works there. I was like, hey, I'm going to come by Monday. I'm going to look at that thing again. As soon as I got off work Monday, I go down there, I look at it, I'm like, yep, that's mine. But originally it had a really nice set of VZ grips on it. And it had one of their, had the Heine rear side on it, and it had the gold bead front side. If anybody's never messed with those are pretty cool. But it had a different trigger bow in it. But really, that's all I've changed is sights, the trigger bow, and the grips, and the magwell, because it had their little carry magwell on it too. And I just changed it out to what I was already familiar with.
Yeah, that's
more comfortable with.
Everyone should really change out when they get a gun is those things, like not internal stuff, but yeah. Well,
oh yeah,
that's awesome. So
it's yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was done.
I was gonna say, so you have another gun, or just that one?
So I have a second major gun. It's actually my carry gun at the time. I'm sorry, I'm unloading it.
I've seen this one. Yep.
What's the point in having a bunch of guns laying around if you don't have one that's loaded? So this is actually my first major gun that I bought. It's a Springfield TRP. So after I won Alabama sectional that year, I won a slot to go shoot single stack nationals. And I knew from then on, because I'd heard Dave Savigny, Rob Latham, all the big single stack guys talk, you don't show up to single stack nationals and shoot minor because you're not going to accomplish a whole lot, which is right in a sense, but I know a few guys that have done extremely well with a minor gun.
We all know those people. Jaleese Williams in limited minor, holy crap.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you look at our buddy Paul Kerr and John Vlieger.
Oh yeah.
I mean, man, they're ridiculous with it too. But yes,
probably gonna win a gun in 2 weeks at the charity match when he places first. So it's already given away.
I know, that's because that's the first time I shot that match last year, and I'm looking forward to going and doing it again. But yeah, that's what Paul and I talk about. We're hoping that it's sunshine and it's not cold, because both of us, we can't handle either one together.
I know. So Brady, you're so lucky that I'm not a girly girl, because we went to Area 5 together, and Brady's like shivering. I'm like, dude, I have a jacket. And he just kind of looks at me. He's like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, no, I have a jacket. Puts it on. It's not very feminine though, so you're welcome, because I could have handed you like a pink hoodie, but I'm not that kind of girl. I remember walking around, hey Brady, how's that jacket?
Oh, believe me, I don't care what kind of jacket it is. It could have been just like this absolutely bright, screaming color that had all this sparkly stuff on it or whatever else. I would have worn it.
You're giving me ideas. Like, I'm going to go to Goodwill and you're going to be screwed.
Oh, as long as there is something warm that I can put on, I will wear it. I don't care what it is.
Remember that. It's going in the truck.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, so yeah, I bought this TRP and shot it over the last couple of years till I found this Nighthawk earlier this year. And I've done a lot with this gun too. It's starting to get to be the same wear on it like what my range officer is. So I really like that. It adds a lot of character.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I basically kind of just got it tuned and set up like all my other ones are. Everything's pretty much similar. The only thing you can tell if you pick up any of the three of them, there's small, just kind of physical appearance differences in all three. But if you pick all of them up and actually start shooting them, they're all the same, except for the minor gun, obviously.
Yeah. So like rounding out single stack, did you have a goal, or do you have a goal to finish out GM, or how far are you away from GM?
I am at 92%, I believe. So yeah, I definitely want to make GM. But the thing that I'm more goal oriented toward is I want to shoot my classification percentage at nationals. This year, as close as I've got to it so far. So I've only shot 3 single stack nationals so far. This year I finished 85, 86, 87%, somewhere in there, I think. So I shot the M classification, not my exact one, but I was very close to it. So if I get GM, I want to be able to shoot the classification percentage at nationals too.
Totally get that. So then you've been open curious as well, and I'm gonna call you a dumbass because you decided maybe not to be shooter, but you go and shoot open nationals for your very first major. I don't even know how long you can tell the audience, whatever, a month into this gun, one other match that was a local, and like you just like show up and say, I'm gonna shoot nationals. Yeah.
So this thing actually started last year. So me and Mike Wong and Chase Lane, Cameron Tanner, and Ethan Howell, we all decided we were going to go down and shoot race gun national last year at Frostproof, and I was planning on going to do it at the time, but then they all decided they were going to go too because it was open limited.
Yeah.
Well, my plan then was, okay, I want to go shoot limited. It's the closest thing single stack. It's just got more bullets in it. So yeah, absolutely. Reload less. Still major though. So I like, all right, I'm going to give my buddy Keegan some money and tell him, hey, build me this limited gun. Make it, the things that I like. You fixed all my stuff that I've broken before. Make me something that works and is reliable and shoots really well. Well, that plan fell through, and we're getting kind of close to nationals, and I'm still kind of dabbling around with single stack stuff. And I've kind of been talking back and forth with my buddy Donnie about open, and he had a really cool shorty open gun in I major, and I ended up talking to him and borrowed that gun. So I practiced with it for all of like 3 weeks. I think I shot 2 club matches with it. Then hopped on down to Frostproof and went and shot nationals and embarrassed myself, I guess, so to say. But then fast forward to this year and coming back from Area 5, Cameron had dropped in a group chat, said, hey, does anybody need this open gun? And he just put pictures of it in there. I was like, hey, who's got this? Like, what do they want for it? And it's literally just an old school plain Jane open gun. It's old. Like, it was built like, I think like 09, maybe. So it's got a little, yeah, it's a boomer like me.
Yeah. People out there be like, who are you calling old, bud? Yeah.
Well, see, that's kind of my running joke, I guess, because people have looked at me before being at matches and they're like, oh, you're a junior shooter too? Well, here, look at it. Like my son, he's like 14 too. I'm like, no, ma'am. I'm 26.
Yep.
So yeah. But it's a very plain Jane open gun. Is flat top, tri-top, just got some standard front and rear cocking serrations cut in it like you would find on any of my 1911s.
Yeah.
And it's a polymer gripped gun, and it has a delta point on it. But it came with a 9 major and a 38 super comp barrel in it that was already fit. And I went and I stopped by the guy's house because he was in Chattanooga on the way home from Area 5, and I loved it. So I bought it, came home with it, and I didn't shoot it because I know at the time if I had started shooting it, I was going to kind of hurt myself for IDPA Nationals coming up the next week. So I left it alone. I kind of like would pick it up every now and then and dry fire it some. I'd be like, oh man, it's so cool. But I ended up taking it out to Colorado with us when we went to IDPA Nationals. And as soon as the match was over, I put my single stack down and I picked up an open gun and put my open rig on and I started dry firing with it. And just practiced probably, I guess at about that time, I had a month behind it before we actually had race gun this time.
Yeah. 1 month, guys. So 4 weeks.
Yeah. So a little longer. But this gun, for some reason, it's a regular full size open gun. And I don't know what it is about it. It may just be my old taste and some other things put together with it too, but it fits me very well. It's just there.
The wand chooses the wizard, Harry.
I don't know that. I don't know anything Harry
Oh
Potter.
my God! What?
Yeah. Yeah, like Harry Potter stuff, like Star Wars, all that stuff. I wasn't into it.
So rude for people listening to the video. This is Star Trek. Anyways, yeah. So we'll digress.
If you were talking, well, if you were talking to our buddy Connor, then he would be on board with you. He could tell you a lot of this stuff. So
you are the Nighthawk equivalent of him and T-Rex arms. So, yep.
That could be.
Welcome to that analogy. I'm like, there's only like 10 people on this earth who know what we're talking about. Anyways, going back to the open after nationals or even gearing up for that, like I ended up shooting open, borrowing an open minor gun. It's a lot of fun. So I understand like how addictive the qualities are of shooting open division. So what did you fall in love with? Like, what do you love about shooting open?
So I knew from last year, whenever the last round that I fired last year out of an open gun was at nationals, and I didn't touch one since I got this one. But I knew going into it the things that I remembered, the things that I struggled with, and the things that I need to get better at, and the things that I should be seeing but I wasn't seeing. Mm-hmm. So I just remembered all of that stuff, and I instantly began working on all of that and trying to make that transition to open with it. And it didn't take long to get all that stuff kind of dialed in and tuned. Wow. But it still wasn't quite there. So even like after race gun this year, I've been kind of trying firing with it more and shooting some more still and kind of working on the finer detail things. But the thing that I really like about open is it's showing me all of my deficiencies that I have in single stack, because it's taking away all the reloads and just some other things in there, because shooting open division, you have to do everything perfect. Yeah. There is no room for error. If you bobble a reload, if you goof up a transition just the slightest bit, it's going to put you behind the other competitors. Oh, yeah. So just all of the fine detailed stuff like that is teaching me so much. So that's why I'm really attracted to open.
I love it. Now, did you actually get instincts to reload at nationals when you didn't need to? Like, does your hand
actually, knock on wood, I've never done that. So shooting open, and whenever I borrowed a buddy's limited gun before and shot an actual limited gun, and not just my single stack when I show up and shoot limited or open, or even like if I go and I dabble around with my Glock, I've never thrown a reload by accident before in a different division, because I feel like that's something that's part of your stage planning and your mental prep for the stage that you're about to shoot. You know, if you go through and you throw a reload when you're not supposed to, or you don't plan for one, then you did something in your stage walkthrough, your memorization, your visualization, your stage planning to make you execute that reload whenever you didn't mean to. So it's really their own fault.
Yeah, there was a mini, I won't name who, but there was like a mini at nationals, mini like speed-ish, not speed shoot per se, but just box 8 shots, and it was left, right, and then go the middle. And he did a reload going through the middle because he's used to production. I was like, you did not need that.
Yeah, and it's a common thing to see for us low cap guys to happen, but I mean, it's something that's avoidable, I believe.
Yeah. So like for going back to nationals too, like for high cap, did you actually have a goal, or is this more of like a, hey, I'm going to go shoot a thing?
It was kind of both. So I felt like it was really hard for me to take and put a goal up there, but Mike and some of the other guys were like, hey, what is everybody's goals for nationals? Oh. And I got to thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? As little time as I have with this gun and with this division period, I still don't know anything about it. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm just kind of here because it's to do something different, is to learn. But I was like, I feel like that I can absolutely 100% shoot 70% of whoever wins the match and all. And I I didn't do it exactly, but I hit like 69.6776 something percent
Well, you
and
called
all. So I was right there at it. So I mean, yeah, I guess goal achieved, slightly missed.
it.
Somewhere
No,
in
I
there.
like that. I really do like that. That's neat to see that. And I'm glad people force you to make goals because I try to ask people that and like, huh? I'm like, well, you should probably have like a why you're coming and what you want to do here to know if you hit that benchmark or yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because a lot of people just take, well, like me for so many years and still a little bit, just do kind of things sort of mindlessly. And there's a lot of benefit to it sometimes. But if you don't know the reason or the purpose as to why you're doing it and you don't have a desired outcome from doing it, that's the thing that really helps drive you.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have a classification in open at all, or did you even have time to have that? You're shooting
So,
classified, weren't you?
so whenever I shot Open Nationals last year, I was unclassified. I had, I think I had 2 classifications on record, and then whenever we showed up to Open Nationals this year, I had 4 on record. So I was A class. I think actually, one of the ones, 1 or 2, of the classifications that I have on file for Open, are with a single stack gun.
Of course. But no, you're one of those. And
Well, yeah,
because like, people are still worse than you shooting. Oh God, with the real open gun.
Well, that's one of the things that I think is fun sometimes too. It's like, okay, and I've really did it too. Whenever I was shooting my my little range officer all the time, it's like, all right, how many open gun shooters can I come and hurt their feelings shooting this $900 minor gun?
So, moving forward too, are you sticking with open division or what does that look like?
So right now, through the rest of my off season, I'm gonna still dabble with it, kind of keep shooting it. Obviously, kind of get ready for the Toys for Tots match. Remember, or try to make sure I remember how to reload.
Yep. Let me tell everyone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I am kind of taking and going back, and I'm shooting both or dry firing both at the same time. And then once the actual season starts back up and I start prepping for that, I'll go back to single stack. But as soon as Classic Nationals is over in 2022, I'm going to be going back to open and doing some more with that.
That's awesome. So yeah, looking at 2022, like, do you have a match schedule laid out for next year?
I have a rough schedule. So I know for sure I'm going to hit Alabama sectional in March, Area 6 in April, go Tennessee and shoot Tennessee State IDPA match on April 1st, April Fool's Day.
No, I'm kidding.
No, that's a really good match. My buddy Brent Sizemore has been putting it on for the last few years, and I finally got to go do it last year because you're the year of the Ronication 2020. It ended up getting rescheduled the same weekend that Area 6 was that Mike and I were going to go down to. So I texted him, I told him, like, hey, I got to go do this because Single Stack Nationals was coming up. And he understood. It was cool with it. But Brent's a really good guy. Puts on a solid match too. But got the IDPA match, and then probably going to try and hit one more before Classic Nationals. Then Classic Nationals, Kentucky section. And then the one definite thing that I know I'm going to do towards the end of the year is going to be IDPA Nationals again. I really want to go back and do race gun again, but I can't. I don't think I can get the time off work to go do 4 days in Colorado.
A lot, yeah. Bummer. So for IDPA, you traveled to Colorado this year for nationals. So I don't know enough about IDPA, but what division did you compete in at that match?
So I competed in the CDP division, Custom Defensive Pistol. So the rules of that division primarily is whatever firearm it is you're competing with, whether it be a 1911 or Glock or SIG, whatever it is, has to be chambered in 45 ACP. It has to meet major power factor. So 165 like USPSA. So yeah, I went there with my Nighthawk and my TRP as my carry gun and back up. Lord forbid if I break something. And went there and competed in that division. So
yeah, cool. Now for that, like, did you have a goal for that nationals, or where were we there?
Well, my goal for that match, I mean, obviously I wanted to take and I wanted to try and win it. But I knew going into it, I had some heavy hitters going into that. I mean, I had Glenn Shelby and I had Rob Latham too. And I mean, Rob just came off of single stack nationals win again this year too. But I was very blessed and ended up on the super squad with everybody. So I got to shoot with with Rob, with Mike Steeklander, Nils, JJ, Mandy Bachman, a bunch of other people. So I got to battle back and forth with Rob there for those 2 days just in person. That was a really cool experience. Plus I learned a lot there. Besides the fact that Rob was a good ball, I knew that already. Yeah. But he's a really good dude outside of shooting too.
Awesome. Very funny. Yeah.
Oh, he is absolutely. Because every time I see him or Phil Strader, I make a joke about one or the other two. Yeah, so I had the goal that I wanted to try and win or finish well, but I knew the odds were going to be very challenging against that. But I ended up, I finished third overall in the division, but I won first place master in CDP because Rob and Glenn were both distinguished masters, which you can only win at an IDPA nationals. It's not like a GM classification, like you can shoot USPSA on classifiers at club match. Or a performance in a match to get a match bump. So yeah, I mean, I won the division in my classification, but I still fell kind of short of what I wanted. But all the more to motivate you for next year, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So how does like moving up in classification work in IDPA lands?
So it's really similar to USPSA. The skill levels are kind of similar in it. So you have, starting on the lower end, you have novice, marksman, sharpshooter, expert, master, and distinguished master. So you can do like USPSA and you shoot a classifier. So IDPA has 2 classifiers now. It used to be just one. So one of the classifiers being the 5x5 that Bill Wilson came out with in 2017, I think. And then IDPA has also modified their old 90-round classifier to a 72-round classifier now. So essentially, the actual classifier is 3 targets at varying heights, and they're all, I think, 3 yards apart. And you'll shoot a few different strings of fire across 3 stages, essentially, if you will. And then you'll take and you'll add up and record your times for each string and your points down for each string that you shoot. And you'll add that up at the end, and that'll give you your classification. So because I think that Area 5 was a week before or 2 weeks before we went out to Colorado to shoot IDPA nationals, and I was wanting to practice a little bit more and actually put my IDPA gear on and kind of get ready and get prepped other than some dry fire. But I didn't get to do that because the only practice that I got was the Monday before we left. I went out and I set up the 72-round classifier, and I shot my best run on it that I've ever had. So that was exactly the confidence boost I needed.
You mean you actually shoot 72 rounds to get a classification? Yep. In one go of it? Like there's only 2 different ways to get classified, right? I'm understanding that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. So it's either do the 72-round full classifier where you shoot anywhere from 5 yards to 20 yards, or you shoot the 5x5 where you shoot 25 rounds total and 4 strings.
Interesting. Okay. Whew. I learned something new today. I mean, that's wild, thinking the difference, I guess, between competitions, really. or yeah. So for IDPA matches, like what are some of like the new rule changes actually that has happened in IDPA recently?
So the biggest rule change that they had, and they sort of come out with rule changes about kind of how USPSA does, but it's a little bit more infrequent maybe. So their latest biggest rule change happened in 2017 because prior to that, the main biggest change or changes that they added was they went from a half second per point down to a full second per point down. So point down being USPSA target, you have A zone, C zone, D zone. So with the IDPA target, instead of the 11x4 rectangle you have in the A zone and the 2x4 credit card in the head, you have a circle that is 8 inches in diameter in the body, and you have a 4-inch circle in the head that is a down 0. And then the C zone is going to be 1, and the D zone is going to be a 3. Okay. So each point down that you are adds a full second to your score. So whereas the goal in USPSA is to score as many points as possible in the shortest amount of time as possible, IDPA is a little different in that you want to not drop as many points as you can in the quickest time.
Yeah. Now, for people that are unfamiliar, what are like the what you call it, targets that you're not supposed to shoot at, non-threats, and like how do you rack up points on those targets?
So a non-threat is worth 5 seconds on those.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have a few interesting penalties. So the non-threat or hit on non-threat is a 5, and then the if you just shoot a miss on a target period, it's a 5. Then they also have a procedural error, which is you did something that was against the procedure for the stage, which is 3 seconds. Or you also have a flagrant penalty, as it's called. So that is I think it's a 15-second penalty for if you do something that is a competitive advantage, primarily.
Like drop your magazine and not retain it.
Well, no, that's just procedural. So yeah, I got one time. So I've only ever shot 2 IDPA nationals before. The first one I shot was in, it may have been 2017 or 2018. Yes, it was 2018 because I hadn't taken a license class at the time. And I shot ESP, which is enhanced service pistol, with my range officer before, which was long before I gave it to Keegan to go through and make it a lot nicer. So that match, I got a flagrant penalty because there was a prone stage, and I earned it. I earned it absolutely because I totally didn't even think about this rule. So there was a prone stage, and they had a piece of carpet laid down, but there was brass all over it, and there's gravel from CMP that was all up on it too. And I was like, my plan going into it was like, all right, I'm just going to come in hard, hot and heavy, and I'm going to just dive on this piece of carpet. I'm like, I'm probably going to get some carpet burn from it, but if I do well on the stage, it's like my next to last stage, it'll be all right. So I remembered I had some knee pads in my range bag. I was like, yeah, I know, I'm a little bit of a limp. But I was like, okay, I'm going to put these knee pads on and I'm going to execute my plan. Well, I go up there, execute my plan, and the sweet little redheaded lady, Dee Dee, I love Miss Dee Dee, her family, they're really precious. So she comes up to me a few years after I shoot that stage and says, hey, can you come over here and talk to her husband, Nikki, is the assistant match director at the time and the match director. So we need to talk to you. I was like, okay. I was like, what is this about? And they said, okay, so we noticed that you use knee pads on this stage, blah, blah, blah. I was like, have you used them for the whole match? I was like, no, I just put them on for the stage because that's the exception of the rule. You can use them, but you have to wear them for the entire match.
As if you were prepared in the IDPA situation. Yeah, it's not something you're going to go, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I wear knee pads when I walk around my concealed carry gear.
So I know you're joking, but I think that I might have to actually do that one day.
Well, I'm gonna pick at you just a little bit. We all know how much you fall sometimes, so knee pads might be a good idea.
I have them. I just have, like, unlike you where you're a wimp, I'm like, I just don't want to wear them. I'm embarrassed. I'm gonna be the kid that shows elbow pads and knee pads. But honestly, I think that if I would probably wear them the whole match just for that.
wear like a bicycle helmet too, or better yet, wear a tactical helmet with some nods on it.
Oh my God! Stop. What do you call tactical Timmies in the female version? They don't exist.
Tactical. I'm sure they will. I'll come up with the name in a minute. I'm sure.
Love it. Yeah. So for IDPA, like, what, how does that help you in USPSA or just in your shooting or concealed carry? Like, what is that teaching you?
So it teaches me a lot because you're using different gear than what you would use in USPSA, and still using different gear from what I would actually carry. But the funny thing about it is, like an IDPA, I use a neck belt that is like the little ratcheting belt system, and I use some Safariland back pouches. So those two things I actually use in my part of my everyday carry. So the only thing different is the holster. So I have to use a holster that is a normal holster. It can't be an appendix holster, right? What I normally use.
Yeah.
But the thing with it is I'm still shooting my carry gun, or a gun that is exactly set up how I carry, because literally all three of these single stack guns I have in front of me, I will throw any one of them in a holster right now and carry it.
Yeah.
Because literally the only thing that I ever change out in them is, depending on how heavy of a mainspring I have in there, I might throw just a slightly heavier one in there and a heavier recoil spring because, hotter ammo. Yeah. But literally every one of them are that reliable that I can actually go and put my exact competition gun in a carry holster and go carry it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So, there's nothing that beats that. Because if people had enough faith in an open gun to run all the time, and there was a good way to conceal one without it being super uncomfortable, people would carry around open guns too.
Yeah, that's true. So, does like shooting USPSA affect IDPA shooting, and like vice versa, as far as like points and speed and like all of that?
I do have to slow down a lot for IDPA, because I have to stand on the brakes a little bit, because if I would go and I would shoot at my normal pace like I would in USPSA, I would shoot a lot of ones or Charlies, which major power factor, major scoring in USPSA, it's fine. A few here and there, it's not going to hurt you a whole lot. IDPA, it can be pretty detrimental, because I remember this year I went and shot the Georgia State IDPA match at Riverbend, and I had a lot of pressure on me already because I had won the match last year and was division champ, and I was trying to do it again. I had some stuff go around, but thankfully the match director was cool with me switching days that I shot. And so I took and I looked at the scores on Competitor app the night before, and I didn't know who the guy was at the time, but he seemed like he put up a pretty solid score, was winning CDP. And I was like, okay, I have to beat that. So I'm a little bit of the type of person that I like to look at the scores, because and USPSA, it doesn't really help me a whole lot. IDPA, it's a lot easier to gauge things, to me, at least. Because I would...
On that, the person that wins IDPA, like, are they doing percentage on stages like USPSA? Is that the difference?
So if you look at it in practice score, it still breaks it down in a percentage on there. But ultimately, like with a hit factor in USPSA, points provided by time, your score in IDPA is going to be the amount of points down plus any penalties that you occur added to your raw time. So essentially, like golf, I guess, lowest time wins or low score wins. I know nothing about golf either, so yeah.
I don't either. But you're setting a stage where you're looking at how people perform to know the times that you should have to be with the points and the penalties versus USPSA. That could change when Christian rolls in on the weekend and everybody else, it doesn't,
Right, because I ended up unfortunately shooting on a Sunday, and I hate shooting on Sundays because I hate laying out of church to do it, but I couldn't get around the situation I had at the time. So I went and shot it on Sunday, and I looked at the guys' scores, and 4 stages into the match, I had a 26-second lead going into it. Get to that 5th stage, and I blew it. So there was a stage that had a drop turner on it that was 2 appearance and just some other targets out through there. Well, I drew to the activator steel, and your first target, actual paper target that you shot, was the drop turner. So drew, I had some goofy malfunction. Apparently the round that was in the gun didn't pass case gauge or something, but ended up in my match ammo pile. Had a malfunction, cleared it real quick, shot the steel, shot the activator, and when I shot the activator the second time, it was turning back. So rules in scoring, if it's more than a bullet diameter hit, doesn't count. So then go on throughout the stage, and I shoot 2 threes in there too. So not only did I drop 6 seconds over here, I dropped another 5 on this one target. So I threw away 11 seconds right there. So I was like, oh, okay, my nice 26-second lead I had just dropped really quick. So I took, and literally my whole mindset from there was, all right, quit just going at it and shooting what you can to just kind of shoot your ability, but don't do anything stupid or that you're unsafe about.
So conservative, pretty much ish.
Pretty much, yeah.
So it didn't work out. You had a goal, and you set a goal, and then out.
Well, I still won the match. But it was very close. Like I said, gosh, I wish I hadn't. That was a bonehead move on my part, but yeah.
Awesome. How does like local matches, when you shoot, what do you focus on? That's kind of my question. So when you shoot, whether it's IDPA or USPSA, are you testing speed, accuracy? Are you trying to see what your capabilities are? Like, what are you doing?
Honestly, it depends, because if I'm really working on something at the time and all, which primarily throughout the season I am, I'll really focus on what I've been actually trying to improve on and get better at, and kind of think about those things, but try and obviously put all of the pieces together to execute the stage, whichever shooting discipline it be, IDPA, USPSA.
Yeah.
But like now in the off season, I'm still paying attention to that stuff and making a mental note of things and trying to execute those things. But primarily it is just all out right now. Beat your buddies for bragging rights. Because I mean, we all love picking at each other anyway, and that's the fun thing about it, too, and the camaraderie in it. Because I mean, we're all at the end of the day, we're all still boys. We still like playing games and kind of talk smack every now and then. So it's fun.
Yeah. And like where you live, you've got, I don't even know, how many ranges do you have around you, and how many matches do you shoot every week?
I'm probably going to make a lot of people jealous when I say this. So I can drive anywhere within actually less than 2 hours. And I can be at, that I know of, 12 different ranges and shoot 12 different club matches.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's famous in Tennessee. Like, you got to pick and choose sometimes.
Yeah. Cause I can either go on the 4th Saturday, I can either go to the range up here that's 45 minutes down the road and shoot a club match there if it's being held, or I can go drive to Georgia for hour and a half and go to Riverbend, and I love going to Riverbend because around here, the low cap and even iron sight shooters now have kind of disappeared. Everybody's either gone to carry optics or open, which I still love trying to race around with them too.
Oh yeah, they're fun.
Don't get me wrong. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's fun to race around with people in that division, but I like shooting up here too because all my buddies are up here.
Yes.
But I love going to Riverbend because I have people like Tyler Turner there shooting production. I've got Brent Wiley that's over there shooting single stack. Randy Arrowwood will be there sometimes. And I even like going up to Tennessee shooting Oak Ridge sometimes too because I'll talk with Paul sometimes like, hey, you can go shoot this match. Because I like doing that because I can actually drive a little bit farther than a closer match and I can go shoot with the heat that I'm going to see at nationals that it's going to be in my division. So that's the really cool about it.
Yeah, you've got a ton of guest rooms up here to stay in, like, with all the people
I really appreciate that because I've been very blessed over the time that I've been shooting that I've met a lot of really good folks that definitely offered a lot. So
100%. And even if you're strangers, you're not. It's crazy. Our community is awesomely crazy. Hey, we don't know.
Absolutely.
Come stay at my house.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I've even explained it to people before, and it's interesting because, like I say, I've grown up in church all my life, and everything there. There has never been a more accepting group of people than your church family that you have because they are literally pretty much your exact blood related family.
Yeah.
But literally the closest thing I have ever seen to that is people in the shooting community. Because and pretty much it's those same group of people because a lot of the people have that same mentality or they have that same raising, that same background too.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I never asked you, have you ever shot Steel Challenge?
I have shot all of 2 Steel Challenge matches.
Okay, what division did you shoot in those 2 matches?
So this was back in my Glock days.
Okay.
Yeah. So I showed up and shot one local club match at Talladega CMP one time back early on. And I think this was 2017 still. I shot one club match there and didn't touch it again, but the guy that was putting the matches on at the time asked me, hey, why don't you come shoot Alabama State Steel Challenge? You can work it or anything else. I was like, oh, okay, I can work it and not have to pay a match fee for it. And it's right here at home or close to home. I was like, sure, why not? So I ended up, I shoot limited minor at Steel Challenge for the Alabama State Steel Challenge that year, and that's the last time I ever shot Steel Challenge. I've been wanting to go back and shoot it in single stack actually because obviously the big thing with Steel Challenge is transitions are a huge thing. Yes, absolutely. And Steel Challenge is the way that you can take and really figure out your transitions on that.
That was actually what made me push speed with PCC, and it tests your eye movement on transitions, and of course your movement and not overrunning targets, underrunning targets. It's just and with dots, especially in open, you just see white and you start pulling that trigger, I don't know. It's an amazing thing when people are like, "Oh, Steel Challenge, that's lame." Yeah, but I learned a lot, and there's reasons for it,
Yeah, and I was very much like that whenever I had first started. In that I was like, it's really the same 10 stages that you set up, and you just basically you drag race every time. But there's a lot more in depth things to learn from it than that. And that's kind of why I want to go back to it because I think that really helped me kind of make me a little bit more disciplined. So.
Yeah, look at Grant Kunkel and Chris Barrett. They're Steel Challenge champions, and they have both dove in, I think, this year to USPSA, and they're top 10, top 20, the major matches and nationals. And it's phenomenal to see that because they're kiddos, but that's the Steel Challenge thing that's in their brain that they can transition paper or steel,
Absolutely. And that is an amazing thing. I had never met Chris, but I got to take him whenever I come and spectated at Carry Optics PCC Nationals, since it's like an hour from my house. I came up there, and the last day that everybody was, or no, it was that Sunday afternoon. I got out of church and headed up there, and I walked around and talked to Grant Kunkel a little bit. He is a really good guy.
Yeah.
He is, man. And that's the thing about it. Because, a lot of the things, and I don't know for certain, but the big thing to me is what somebody's character is and all. Show me somebody's character and all, and that says a lot about them.
Yep.
But, man, that's the greatest thing I've seen in the shooting community, too, is when you get to know people outside of shooting and all, and see who they actually are in their personal lives and just kind of talk to them for a minute, you really see what their character is. Yeah. You learn a lot about them. So that's the thing I appreciate most.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Grant's definitely one of those guys.
He's amazing. He's a really sweet guy, tough worker. The other thing too, to comment on that, is his mom has done a phenomenal job like raising him, and she travels and matches with him, and she's the support system. You literally have families traveling together. It's cool to see. Like, I wish I had that growing up, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because that's the thing. Was like my mom is like, she is. I love both my parents. Don't get me wrong, but like I am my mom's child, because like we both act very similar and things like that. Versus my little sister acts like my dad, and all. But like me and my mom we think about things the same way and do some of the things very similar. So yeah, and then too, obviously, mothers being mothers, they do a lot for you throughout your life too. I'm really grateful for that.
So cute, Brady.
I'm a ginger. It's all right.
Oh God. Oh man. So coming towards the end of this, I want to ask you, do you have like a big dream, whether it's in the competitive shooting world or in the firearms industry, or like long term with your life, what you want to do?
Honestly, I'm going to keep on with my original goal. And if you clone yourself today, can you kick your clone's butt tomorrow? Because the thing that I found in that sets no limits and no bounds to anything. You can accomplish anything that you want to with that. And a lot of people may make fun of that, I guess, but it is what it is to me. But I've got some goals that I'd like to accomplish. Obviously, I'd like to get to GM single stack and get to where I'm good with open division and do some things in IDPA and single stack and everything else too, and just improve myself all around as a whole. But I feel like at the end of the day, if I set that one big one in making myself better, and just doing something every day to continue in that, then I'll definitely get to whatever goal I set.
Oh, I agree. A couple things that resonate with me, actually. I've read a lot of books in marketing and project management, but if you think about like little impacts over time, little droplets, it's the same as the points on the IDPA. 1 point per stage adds up at the very end of it, right? It's a compound effect. And so like if you're cloning yourself today and you're saying on that day, oh, I'm done learning, there's nothing else I can learn. Well, that's what you're going to live with for the rest of your entire life. I love that, Brady.
Yeah, you're exactly right in that, because there's a lot of people that I've met before that are like, they kind of had that mindset of, well, I feel like I've learned just about all the things I can learn. I've gleaned everything, and I can see where you come from with that, in that, you take a lot of classes and you feel like you've kind of scooped up on everything that you can. But I feel like unless you are you look at the people that are even on top of the game right now. Look at Eric Gaffel. Look at Ben Stoker, Rob Latham. They are still putting in the work and getting after it all the time because they want to get better than what they are. You have people like that, and even professionals in other sports, whatever it may be, or just in any profession in life, there's people out there that are like that are constantly striving to get better, that are at the top of the game, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But one thing you said in that too, with that, is a lot of the ways that people are successful is you have to have a process to things. Because you even like kind of going back to top competitive athletes again, you look at somebody like Max Michel. I've heard Max talk about before on a podcast, his process that he has and how he kind of just sticks to it and will follow that to a T. And I found myself on the same way. And there's actually there's a couple books that talk about it. So obviously, a lot of people know Laney Bastion with Winning in Mind. Great mental book. Definitely made a lot of things happen for me on the mental game side. But there's another one out there that's called Chasing Excellence by Ben Bergeron. It's a CrossFit kind of centered book and themed background to it, I guess you'd call it. Yeah. But the thing that it talks about in that is sticking to a process and committing to a process day in, day out, working harder and developing whatever your craft may be, whether it be professionally in business, your day-to-day career that you have, or in whatever sport that you may be in.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. The worst too is like going in blind of not knowing what to do or not knowing what to practice or not whatever. You've got to have a plan and be process focused with that outcome like in mind, but not outcome focused. Because a whole bunch of little steps to get to that goal.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it, because if people don't know what to work on and all, I mean, there's all these different materials out there that you can get a hold of. I mean, you can buy, because how I got started. Well, the first thing I ever did was I took a class with like I said, my dear friend and my training partner, Matt Sims. And take a sidestep to this. Matt is definitely by far one of the best shooters I've known. Really good guy. Love his family to death too. But he's definitely a good role model for me also. But I took a advanced competition class with him at one point, but I actually took a one-on-one with him whenever I very first started and didn't know how to use iron sights or any sights period. And it was funny because he he asked me that day, he said, so what have you got in mind for a class and all? Because I just told him I wanted to do a one-on-one day with him to learn stuff because I knew nothing. And I said, well, that's really, because at the time I was more in a defensive type mindset, concealed carry. It's like, really, I want to be more kind of defensive mindset. Oh, he's like, okay. That day was, to use his words, like drinking water from a fire hose. He dumped so much knowledge on me that day, just in everything. And that's the thing about it, because Matt he does some adjunct teaching for the feds too. So I got a lot of good stuff from it. But the thing that people don't realize is if you don't know what you need to improve on, well, take a class with somebody. Those instructors are very trained and very detailed. Obviously, a good credited instructor, obviously, that can, yeah, absolutely. But an instructor can tell you, what some deficiencies are, some things you can work on. It can show you how to get better, or you can do something like that or similar to what I did. Because after I took those couple of classes with Matt, I kept looking around to try and find something else outside of just experimenting with stuff of my own that kind of teach me something. And I picked up Mike Seeklinder's competitive shooting book.
Oh, cool.
That is a really good book too, especially because I like it because for people that were getting started, kind of like where I was at the time, it lays everything out and lays out a process that you can follow. And all you have to do is just follow it and you get the results.
Yeah.
But there's so many different resources out there that people can use to get better. But the thing that will actually make them get better is commit to it and doing it. Like we said, commit to that process. I'm going to go back and steal something from Matt again. Matt told me earlier on in that one-on-one day class that I took with him, said there are three things that make a good shooter. At the time, because we left it open for competition, defensive, whichever. Good shooters got to have the equipment. They have to have the skill. They have to have the will. Skill can be learned. Equipment can be bought. The will to practice and get better, you have to have that.
Yeah.
People that don't have that will stay exactly where they're at, and they will not get better. Yeah. You have to have that drive to get in there and work on it constantly.
Love it. Love it. So how did you improve your shooting like at home without firing ammo at all? At home, what does dry fire look like for you? And I've seen it like in hotel rooms. All right, I'm gonna dry fire now. Like it's like endless.
Yeah, because we had a gigantic, all whatever 5 or 6 of us that were staying in the house at Area 5. We had a gigantic dry fire montage.
It's really
awesome.
fun.
It was. Because so for me, it's changed throughout the year because whenever I got started in competitive shooting, I had just got out of high school and I was in college. So my practice routine and schedule would change with my school schedule that I had, and obviously I just adjust my work schedule for that too. So it literally varied from my early days of just starting, didn't know how to use the sights, to okay, I'm going to learn how to manipulate everything and do that exactly as good as everybody else can, to okay, I'm going to dry fire for 15 minutes. I'm going to focus on these things. I need to get better at these things. To a full on, okay, I'm doing a morning dry fire session for 2 hours. I'm doing an evening dry fire session for 2 hours. I ran into a little bit of a problem there because I'd been using 1911s there pretty exclusively, and that's where how I messed up the disconnector in my my range officer actually was from all the dry fire I did from manipulating the slide. I rubbed a flat spot across the top of it. So, I mean, it's gone from one extreme to the other where now I take and I will dry fire on something that I am weak at that I need to improve on, which I'm weak in all areas. I feel like everything needs to be better. But I'll focus on some specific things that I need to improve on, and I will work on those until I feel like I can consistently repeat each one of those. And like I say, it's different every day what I may work on.
Yeah. Well, you need to. So like when people, I do the same thing over and over again. I was like, oh, are you getting the same results? Yeah. Oh, okay. Do you think you should change it to get different results? Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned resources and stuff, which I love that. But like as far as like people listening, you've already said it. Take classes, watch videos, read books. All of these things. Get a plan together. And if you don't know how to do a plan, get with someone who knows how or can help you build a plan.
Yes, absolutely. I
love it. And then I have a question that might be difficult for both of us really to tackle. But right now, with everything going on in the industry, how could someone still get into the competitive shooting world, despite the lack of components or higher prices of components? What are some things that they could do to save money, borrow, or, what have you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, because I've I've offered it to our friend Mike Lang a few times over the last year. Whenever he talks about he wants to go shoot single stack or something or mess around with it, I'll tell somebody that I know fairly well, or even if it's a new shooter that wants to just come shoot, but will bring like some factory ammo or whatnot. I'll be like, look, I have some guns, I have some equipment you can use. Here, take it, come out and shoot. Even if I like you that well, I might give you my HD Golds to wear too. But yeah, I mean, there's things like that because if you know somebody that would take and would let you borrow some equipment to get you started, that can help. But if you have equipment already, and that's the biggest misconception with competitive shooting too. People think that, oh, I've got to buy this gun to go out and do it. Well, no, if you have a Glock 19 and that is your carry gun and you don't know what exactly you want to compete with yet, but you're doing it with a goal in mind to just get better at shooting, or you want to get in competition, or you want to develop yourself better as a concealed carry defensive minded person, go shoot what you have.
Yep.
Because that's the biggest thing about it too, because there's not that many people in competitive shooting that actually shoot their carry gun.
No.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people too, their carry gun is a very far fallacy from what they actually compete with too. Because like how some people may shoot an open gun or shoot a limited gun and major power factor all the time, but they carry an LCP.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally different. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to train carry gun, whether you're transitioning or just yearly. Like so many people. The other thing I'll touch on too is like when I go from summer carry to winter carry, my whole gun goes to a larger capacity. I need to go back and train because that's a huge difference. Grip, trigger, everything. Oh my gosh.
Well, see, and that's the thing with me, because like the smallest gun that I own is a pistol that I own is a Ruger LC9S. Everything else, 5-inch gun.
Teeny tiny. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I said earlier, I will carry, and I have carried every one of my 5-inch 1911s I have. And I've carried my Glock 34 with a 17-round mag and a 140 millimeter mag on my belt.
You're insane. But yeah, do that, guys.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I won't deny it, but I've never claimed to be sane.
You're totally right. My dad gifted me a Glock 17, and I remember I shot, my first match was GSF, and then I shot Steel Challenge, made the pistol team at Florida State. Then I went to USPSA, and then I shot in 3-gun. That gun has literally been through every single type of sport, from holster, from dumping it, throwing it, acquiring sights. It's just been fun, run what you have. It works.
Absolutely.
If it goes bang, it works.
Absolutely. That's right. But I mean, other than that, absolutely. Like we've talked about already, dry fire, that's the biggest thing. If you're limited on what kind of ammo you can get your hands on or what you can afford, dry fire is the best thing to do. And if you don't want to develop bad habits still, then there's definitely some resources out there you can learn from too. You can get on YouTube, and that's the greatest thing now. YouTube has helped out so much and has really been the thing that's launched a lot of the younger crowd, myself included. I use that a lot.
I use it to fix stuff, to repair stuff, to learn what the hell I'm doing. Yeah.
That's it. Because like YouTube is like Google now. If you need to learn how to do something, you don't Google it anymore. You just YouTube it.
I do. Oh my God, but it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. But I mean, even now though, there's people that will do online video coaching. Because I know Steve Anderson's a big one that'll do like dry fire coaching. I'm sure JJ and some other ones do it too now.
Travis has a whole entire like curriculum and online training, and a lot of them have groups now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And then, I mean, you have online resources too. Like, there's one that I'm a member, or well, two that I'm a member of. So there is the version of it that I'm in. There's two different ones. There's American Warrior Society that Mike Seeklander and Rich Brown head up. And then there is also a side to that. It's American Competitive Shooting Society. So I'm a member on the American Warrior Society side. So there is so much online resources that you can take to do from that. Mike has got a lot of his competitive type stuff in there, and it paired along very well with his competition book that I read. So, getting to see the actual live stuff associated with that. But then too, you've got things like Practical Shooting Training Group online that Ben Stoger and Wansit Kim does. And then you even got people like Mason Lane, Christian Seiler in there, and some other very skilled high-level competitors and phenomenal instructors in there dropping some content also. And then, I mean, even Max Michelle, he has his own thing that he's doing now too. Yeah, I think even Chris Tilley has something going now, him and Steve Anderson. So there's a lot of different resources.
Yeah. The internet opens up a world of opportunity, and COVID changed the way people do business, which I like. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. The Amazon shopping has definitely skyrocketed, I'm sure.
I want to support local. However, sitting here and delivering 2 days is really nice. Oh, man. Well, Brady, it's been fun. I want to ask you just if you have any other final thoughts that you want to leave listeners with.
I would say the biggest thing, if you're thinking about not even competitive shooting, if you're thinking about going and doing something that's going to potentially better you in a career or anything, I'm all about self-betterment, no matter what it's in. Don't be afraid to do it. Go in and do it. It's a lot of things that hold people back in life is they are just so fearful and can't get over themselves and either be their ego or their pride and say, okay, I need help to get better at this, but I don't want to ask for help because I'm that way. I'm absolutely that way. I'm stubborn and I want to figure things out for myself too. But at the same time, the Lord has blessed me with a little bit of sense to realize that, if there's somebody out there that already knows how to do it, ask them for help. So never be afraid of that.
Like that. There's a tribe out there of us. Yeah.
We got to stick together.
Yeah, absolutely. I normally Google and YouTube until I get frustrated and I'm like, all right, it's time to ask for help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any shout outs you want to give to like sponsors or people that support you or, have helped you along the way?
Yes, absolutely. So first and foremost, I guess they're my biggest sponsor. I'd definitely say my family. My parents have been very supportive of me because, like I say, living at home all through college and all that, there have been several nights where I've been up to like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and then roll around and go to school or work a few hours later, where I've stayed up either all night dry firing and driving crazy and screaming, I can go to bed, or loading ammo, or loading ammo. And they've been very, very considerate and very kind and, being accepting of all that stuff. And then they're also encouraging too. But definitely, along those lines too, I definitely give a shout out to, some of my sponsors. So, Georgia Brass for one. So they are in Georgia, like I said. Let's see what I did there.
Well, people these days, they need that information.
Remind me in just a second, and I can tag a funny story onto that relates to that. So they supply clean, fresh, resized, once fired, deprimed brass for whatever caliber you can think of. Dan Humphreys and Clint Bowen are in charge of that, and they do a really good job with both supporting the shooting community, and they're just really good guys in general too. So really thankful for them. Ready Tactical. So I've been using, it's Chris Stewart is one that owns it. So I use his holster and all whenever I compete in IDPA or USPSA. Then these other ones aren't my sponsors necessarily, but it's products that I use and I believe in. Obviously, Nighthawk, thank you for being, for first off, most importantly, your morals and what you stand for and believe in. That's, like I say, that's the biggest, most important thing. Stick with that and you'll never go wrong. But also, thank you for making a high-end quality 1911 that I can put my trust in. And Hunter's HD Gold. So a side note on Hunter's HD Gold. So what I do for a living is I'm a health and safety professional in the occupational field. So whenever Hunter's HD Gold first came out, I was really intrigued in those. But at the same time, I was like, whoa, the cost of them. And I didn't really understand the benefit of them at the time. But looking at them from a safety professional's eyes, I saw it and I was like, okay, these meet all of the ANSI standards that we have to have in a workplace for eye protection. And you can get them in whatever frame you want. And they have all of the benefits of transition lenses, UV protection, you name it, and everything but polarization. And they're just great for every application. And then, whenever I actually got a pair and started using them, they were just a total game changer. So definitely, Brian Conley, you hit it out of the park.
Awesome.
And Albany's Gummy Bears. You knew that was coming. You
no,
had to.
Actually, I forgot, and now I remembered. I'm like, well, that makes sense.
So, a really important one also, competitive shooting solutions. So Keegan Singleton has started in the last few years doing his gunsmithing business, competitive shooting solutions. Keegan, thankfully, I thank the Lord for him. So the range that I normally practice at is literally shares a property line with where he lives. So there have been many a time that I have broken something, and he's going to hysterically laugh whenever I tell some of these. And here's this. I have literally broken major parts in my gun the week of a big sanctioned match coming up, and I will call him. I'll be like, hey, I've messed something up. I don't know what's wrong. And I will just go over there and he'll fix it for me, thankfully. And he's been really good at taking care of me with that stuff, and done a lot of good work for me. And he's actually, I'll have it here and show it. So this is my old minor gun that he went through and redid and checkered the front strap on it and re-cerakoted it and put some different firing controls in it. And it is just super slick. It is a sweet gun. But he's actually building me a limited gun right now too. So I definitely seen a lot of the work that he's put out, and also just the quality guy that he is too. He's a very, very good person. So definitely, if you need some gun work done, whether it be to a hunting rifle or a shotgun or everyday carry pistol or a race gun. Yeah, even single stack guns or race guns too. Give him a call, and he definitely can fix you up with what you need.
Love it. So, what's the brass story, the Georgia?
So I don't think Clint would mind me telling this because it's a funny story. So one year they were going to shoot the Tennessee State IDPA match that they held at Uspsa at the time in Oak Ridge. So it used to be called the Secret City IDPA Championship, IDPA match, something like that. And obviously anybody knows the history of Secret City being where they did a lot of the nuclear testing and all of that. So, there's a little bit of a running joke about people that live around there and radioactivity, things along those lines. But one time they went to a Walmart there the night before the match, and they used to have shirts and stuff like travel shirts that said, Georgia Guns and Ammo, Georgia Brass on them. And they walked up to the little girl that was working at the register at Walmart to check out. And just so plainly, so calmly, she just said, Georgia Guns and Ammo, where is that? And Clint, without missing a lick, said, Louisiana, Texas. And she was like, whoa, that is so cool. I've never heard of that place. Oh. Where is it at? And it was just like this long, drawn out thing. It was so funny. And Clint is that kind of good guy that he is just hilarious. I love seeing him around at places. But yeah, he did a really fun one with that.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. That is hilarious. I love when people just they're oblivious to things. I'm like, yep, that's how we're gonna go with it. And they believe it. Did he just keep it going? Like he never told her, right?
Oh no, he never told her. Not that I know of, at least. But yeah, Clint's one of those guys that has a great sense of humor, and he can tell a really good story too. And then, like I said, on top of that too, him and Dan are both really good guys. So not only can you get some awesome brass to reload with, but you can also get some good jokes. But aside from that too, I almost forgot, you need good projectiles to go into that brass. And I use Brass Monkey. So Jason Pratt, I've used blue bullets before. I've used other different types of coated bullets and jacketed bullets too. There's good people out there in the industry and stuff, no matter what it is. But Jason's a really good guy. I've talked to him a lot and stuff, and he's not one of my sponsors or anything, but I believe and I use his products because Paul and some others have talked a lot of good things about him too. But I've started using his projectiles over the last year, and I've even shot some of them through my open gun, and no problems with leading or anything like that either. But those are some really good projectiles to use if you're looking for a good bullet to use, and they're accurate as anything else. There's no tumbling or anything else like you'll see with some other big name bullet manufacturers.
Love it. That's awesome. Well, okay. How can people follow you online or on social media and ask any questions?
Well, I'll answer any questions you have to ask, but there's probably not any good questions that you can think to ask me. So I have Instagram and Facebook. So Instagram is Brady V Hardin, I think. V is in Victor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Hardin. So you can find me on Instagram there, and then Facebook. I just have a standard Facebook page up. It's just my name. You can shoot me a message or anything like that, or if you see me at a match or anything, or see I'm going to be the one squat up with me, or just come over and chit chat. I talk to anybody.
Yep, I enjoy your company for sure. Love shooting with you, and yeah, thanks for everything you do. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I'm glad you came.
Well, thank you for having me. You're taking a very bold risk in having me on.
You must be an ongoing joke, but like, you must be at the bottom of the barrel, wanting to interview me. But it goes back to, and you've already said it, that there's something that someone can learn from someone. I've already learned something. I'm sure people listening have already learned something. So you are wrong, sir.
Well, they probably learned they never need to listen to a ginger from Alabama again.
The words "roll tide" should never come out of your mouth. That's what we've learned.
Maybe not. But I don't even care about sports nowadays. But no, seriously though, thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed it, and like I say, it's always good to see you, and always good to have your company too.
Heck yeah, ready for 2022. So, for you guys listening, definitely see you on the circuit next year. Hit up Brady, especially if you enjoy that single stack reloading line. Yeah, stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Reticle Up podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Follow along on social media at Reticle Up or 3 Gun Kenzie.